Do you struggle with structure and discipline? You probably do, or at least I know I do. But this episode is all about how to fix that. Stay tuned. This episode of Keeping It Real is brought to you by Real Geeks. How many homes are you going to sell this year? Do you have the right tools? Is your website turning soft leads into interested buyers? Are you spending money on leads that aren't converting? Well, Real Geeks is your solution. Find out why agents across the country choose Real Geeks as their technology partner. Real Geeks was created by an agent for agents. They pride themselves on delivering a sales and marketing solution so that you can easily generate more business. Their agent websites are fast and built for lead conversion with a smooth search experience for your visitors. Real Geeks also includes an easy-to-use agent CRM. So once a lead signs up on your website, you can track their interest and have great follow-up conversations. Real Geeks is loaded with a ton of marketing tools to nurture your leads and increase brand awareness. Visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod and find out why realtors come to Real Geeks to generate more business. Again, visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod. And now, on to our show. Hello and welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I am your guide and host through the show. And in just a moment, we will be speaking with top producer and veteran Shelby Johnson. Before we get to Shelby, we have just a few announcements. First, please tell a friend about this podcast. It's the best way to help us grow. We want to reach as many realtors as possible. So just tell one friend. That's all we ask. And also, please leave us a review. Whatever podcast app you may be listening to this on, let us know what you think of the show. We really appreciate it. Helps us also get in front of more listeners. So that's it, guys. Let's get to the main event. My conversation with Shelby Johnson. Today on the show, my guest is Shelby Johnson from 5 Pillars Real Estate with EXP in Charlotte. Now, let me tell you more about Shelby. Now, Shelby served in the Army for 6 years before diving into real estate full-time as both a broker and an investor in 2018. Now, out of the gate, she was recognized at the Keller Williams Rookie of the Year, all of North and South Carolina. And I'm going to guess there's thousands of Keller Williams agents in both of those states. In fact, I know there is. So that is a huge, huge deal. She closed 48 transactions in her first year. Let's just pause and marvel at how amazing that is. Everyone listening knows how amazing that is. Then she went on to moved on to create a traditional team called 5 Pillars Realty Group, which, and you're going to have to pause again because I'm going to give you a number. It's going to blow you away. So after her first year, she created this group and then closed 500 additional transactions. In fact, more than 500 in her first 2.5 years. Insane. In the mid 2021, 5 Pillars evolved out of the traditional team into what it is today, which is now called 5 Pillars Nation. How exciting to learn about how Shelby has done this and what she can do to help you replicate the same sort of success. Now, I want everybody, because she is a coach as well. So I want I'm sorry. I have a little bit more to read for Shelby. My apologies. Outside of building her agent business, Shelby was flipping, acquiring rentals. She was in the investment space, both short and long-term rentals. She founded Pints and Properties, which is a nationwide real estate investors group, and is passionate about helping real estate agents use their active income to build passive income portfolios as well. And for anyone listening, if you aren't familiar with the investor side of real estate, it's really a great opportunity because at some point in your career, someone will come to you and say, I want to invest in real estate. And it's good to really have that skill set so that you can, of course, accommodate that agent as opposed to just referring it to someone else like the Shelby, right? So it's good that she can help teach you all that stuff and just how to be a really successful agent, even if you're not on the investment side, because her team and her have done I mean, 500 transactions in 2.5 years is insane. So amazing. Anyway, follow her on on Instagram, which is The Shelby Show. We will have a link to that in the show notes. And also visit her website, fivepillarsnation.com. And she has coaching that she does, and she even has free coaching as well. So check her out. I am such a big fan of you, Shelby. I just learned about you. I'm already a fan, but I'm excited that you're on the show. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Man, that was such an intro, dude. Thank you. I'm really
I
excited to
get
be here.
excited. You know
Wow.
what's funny? I was just thinking about this. I've done about 500 of these
Oh my
episodes,
gosh.
and I get so excited because I just love talking to people that are really doing exceptional things. And, maybe it's some insecurity of myself of not feeling as successful as my guests. But I like that. I like that I get to talk to people like you. First of all, you served our country. So on behalf of all of our audience, thank you for that. That is the most important, one of the most important things that we don't often remember as U.S. citizens. But thanks for that. And then also, you have just had incredible success very early and quickly in real estate. So, how did you get into real estate? We know you were in the Army, and then did you come straight from the Army into real estate?
Yeah, I did. So I served in the Army for 6 years, and it was my first duty station was lovely. I loved it. I was going to be in the Army forever. And then I changed duty stations to another installation. It used to be called Fort Bragg. It recently changed to Fort Liberty, North Carolina. And I just had a completely different experience that led me to considering other options. I'm like, hey, like I don't have to do this for the rest of my life. And I would ideally have something where I had control over my time and, my income would directly reflect my paycheck as opposed to having to work, years to hit the next benchmark to make the amount of money. And so I just started looking around for, what could check those blocks. And it was real estate investing was actually what I stumbled upon first through
Sure.
Robert Kiyosaki and
Oh, sure. Passive
yeah,
income, residual income,
yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Yes, and then bigger pockets. And so I had this idea. I was like, oh, I'll just buy rental properties and then I will make money in my sleep and I'll just, ride off into the sunset and never have to talk to a human again, right? Um, that's really funny. If you have actually been in real estate investing, you know that it's not like that. But that was the original dream. And I decided to get my real estate license as a means to generate the active income to pour straight into my investment. So, and what I didn't realize at the time, because, a lot of people getting their license, they're just like, oh, I'll just open some doors, show some houses and close and make a lot of money. And
Sure.
I didn't realize it was like, no, it's a whole ass business, you know? So that,
It is, and it is funny. It's it's a lot of people get into real estate as agents, or like you said, on the on the investor side, and not always understanding the amount of work and effort it takes, because really it's no different really than many startup businesses. There's this learning curve. There's time to generate enough income to keep the business afloat. There's lead generation. There's all of these pieces of really any business that and it's sometimes the schools who teach the pre-licensing classes, they don't really talk about any of that. They just go, let's help you
none
pass the
of it.
test,
Yes.
the rules and regs stuff, which you forget about anyway the moment you pass the test.
Mm-hmm.
But this idea of really understanding, like, it's kind of a trial by fire in a lot of ways, and you did it and you were very successful. I'm curious. I've had a lot of military or ex-military on the show who've gotten into real estate, and I am sure there are some non-success stories, but boy, there's a lot of success stories. I suspect, this is a guess, but I suspect the discipline and the structure of being in the military, I'm guessing, was really helpful to then when you're on your own and not really accountable, assuming that you don't have somebody looking over your shoulder every few minutes going, what are you doing right now? Most realtors don't have that, and they have to really be self-sufficient and self-starters. Can you talk about what you learned in the military, and were you able to bring some of those skills over into real estate?
Yeah, my military experience was absolutely huge in the ability for anything that I've done so far. And I didn't even realize it at the time, like how impactful it would be for me. But like you said, with the discipline and the structure, for sure, that was a thing. I was already used to getting up early and attacking my day. And also the military instills this sense of urgency within you because there's so many levels of like, you know, leadership and ranks, and there's like a lot of pressure all the time and a little bit of fear from being
Sure.
yelled at or getting negative counselings or whatever. And so I still had that like deeply ingrained in me. So like whether or not I had anyone over my shoulder, there was just this sense of urgency, like I have to do this like now, like yesterday. And the other piece of that urgency also is the fact that in the military you can't, if you care at all about your survival, you can't say, I couldn't do it, or I couldn't figure it out, or it didn't work. And so that idea of like, there is a way, you
Yeah.
just have to find it. No is not an answer. That
Yeah.
is incredibly helpful year one.
Uh, it is. Boy, I don't know that anyone's ever said that exact thing on our show. And if they have, I've forgotten it. But that is a brilliant thing to really, it's simple. But this idea of learning, learning to how to process a no and learning what a no really, really is and having it not feel like the worst possible thing to happen. And also, I mean, it's like, I always think really successful people just fail more. So they're just used to the no's. And when I say fail, I mean they just don't get their outcome most of the time, but they just keep going.
Mhm.
And of course, military works all on, there's a chain of command, and you are not to really question. And it's kind of like, I don't even know, now in this country, we sort of are like, you get to question everything and you get to just, be an individual, and there is no rules. But in the military, there are rules. There's really specific reasons for that. And it's not because they want to control and punish. They just want a really effective military to actually keep the rest of us safe. And so there are processes that are tried and tested, and you have to just trust that the people, that have put these rules in place know what they're doing. And you're right, you don't get to probably say no as much as you do, outside of the military, especially when someone's asking you to do something. But there's a reason for that. And it's not because they're evil people. They're like, no, we know how to do this, and we want to teach you so that we can keep you safe and you can keep everyone else safe. So I love that. And I imagine, yeah, I've never met somebody who was ex-military who was like, I just can't seem to be I'm not a self-starter anymore. It's like they all just learned it so well. So I think amazing. And you're right. Like, again, not hearing no, just going, okay, well, I'll figure out a different way around this. And the cool part about real estate, there's a million ways to do it.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. So much. It is the land. If you're creative, the world is yours in real estate, which is just such a beautiful thing. And one of the things I love about it so much, it's like there's never one way to skin the cat. There's like
yeah,
75. The military in general, like besides those aspects, though, there was also the aspect of the organizational side of it. So like I worked in human resources and I
sure.
oversaw 700, men within as soldiers, but at the time it was infantry was all guys. So it really was men. And I was in charge of seeing people come into the unit, leave the unit, go on deployments, redeploy, award ceremonies, promotions, retirement ceremonies, and then also like making sure that that aligned with all of the other operational things that were happening in the unit. And so the fact that I could, I worked with the operations and looking ahead on the calendar and making milestones and benchmarks and sticking to timelines, and the calendar being like a Tetris, all of this stuff directly ties into real estate, in addition to in the military that people move duty stations all the time. They
Sure.
PCS, they change duty stations. And so everything has to be documented, because when you leave, oftentimes there's not even a handover. So your replacement will come 2 weeks after you've left. And if you don't have your operating procedures documented, so that way someone could pick it up on a third grade level and figure out how to do it, it's unacceptable. So those were things that really helped, documenting, so that way I could automate and leverage and use my time wisely. And those really impacted throughout everything that I've done so far in real estate.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense is having these standard operating procedures and this tight organization so that things don't fall through the cracks. Because like you were saying, somebody leaves a particular area where they're deployed, and then their replacement comes in, but it's weeks later, and there are a million things have happened in those 2 weeks, and you're like, okay, now I have to figure out how to keep this all straight. It's kind of similar in real estate, right? Like, deals fall through, things happen, and it's, or even just you close a transaction and then you're like, well, that person's probably not going to buy or sell another property for 7 years or whatever the statistic is these days. How do I make sure that they don't forget about me during
Yeah.
that time? But I want to find out, what do you think was the main reason that you got to 48 transactions in your first year? I mean, that's insanely impressive. I don't suspect there's any magic sort of formula that that no one else knows. Maybe there is. But what do you think made that difference for you? Why do you think you did that well?
Yeah, that one of the reasons is because I didn't know how good it was when I was doing it. And that is one of those things. If I didn't go in with the expectation of like, an average agent in a good first year closes like, I don't know what, like 6. I actually don't
Maybe
know.
6. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe 6. And so I just went in knowing that I was going to go absolutely as hard as I could. And the results followed from like the input of the work, but I didn't realize until literally they were like, "Oh, you're rookie of the year." I'm like, "What?" So I think that honestly, having my mind not constricted to what was possible helped. That was one thing, and
Oh,
then
that's interesting. Yeah.
there's there's a slew of other reasons. Like I stayed in the local city that I knew all of the people that I had a relationship with within my organization. They already liked me and trusted me, and I was so
Sure.
annoying on the way out. Like, I'm getting into real estate, tell everyone you know, here's business cards for, like, so annoying. That was a piece. And then I think the gosh, I don't know, there's a million pieces. There's the sphere of influence that I had, the way that I aggressively tapped into it, the organization, and the ability to. So what I did also, I know I'm a little all over the place, but like
No, you're good.
I am very impatient. I don't want to spend the year learning how to do something. I want to learn it in a condensed manner as efficiently as possible. So after a freaking day of going to my Keller Williams class and sitting in like the class that was a nice little slow pace and we learned some things, whatever, I was like, this is not going to cut it. So I went to the owner, what are they called at Keller Williams? I don't know, the like CEO basically. And I was like, who are the top 5 agents in the firm? And I got their contact information and I
Smart.
ran them down. I was so annoying, but in like a nice, pleasant way, because new agents are a dime a dozen. They don't pay attention the first time you ask. It's the 12th time that you ask to
That's right.
shadow them that they're like, fine, just get in my car. And so I did. I literally shadowed every single one of them. And I pulled as many systems as I could from them. And I let go the ones that I didn't think worked for me. And I implemented it.
I would, how much, so by talking to those top 5 agents, and again, this is just a guess, but you would know this better than I could guess. How much time do you think you saved in, I mean, are we talking years maybe?
I would say so. I'm talking year, especially since like they were so kind when I finally got around them and showed them that I was like really valuing every minute, every second that they put into me. Literally, they sent me the email templates for contract to close. They sent me checklists. Here's my buyer's packet. Here's my listing packet. Like I learned more in that first month than most agents learn in their first 5 years, I swear.
Yeah, no, you're right, and this whole show was predicated on the idea that top producers are actually really generous with their
Mhm.
processes, their systems. I wasn't sure that was going to be the case when I started the show like 5 or 6 years ago, and I go, well, I just hope people like are willing to be on it. Well, now, I mean, we haven't had to ask for a guest in years because they want to be on the show. They appreciate giving back. You are obviously no exception to that. You're doing the same thing, and it is amazing if you just ask. But you're right. You do sometimes have to ask a few times,
Oh my
and
gosh.
maybe more than a few times, because top producers, their biggest challenge is time. And honestly, they don't have time for you. So you really have to make it a priority to really, really just like how you would prospect a client. Like you're saying, obviously you don't want to be super annoying, but you want to be pleasantly annoying in a sense where
Totally.
you're like, no, I really respect you. I just want to take you out for 15 minutes for coffee or something. And even if you just do that once a week, you'll probably get just incredible. Like you were saying, you got all sorts of handouts and
Oh my
guides and
gosh.
checklists and gosh, I can't even imagine how much time that and
So
you also work at a firm. Keller Williams is got some of the very best training on the planet. I mean, it's kind of what they're known for, Gary
totally.
Keller and that whole thing. And so you're already getting good training. You're like, I'm going to go out and find other stuff
Too
too,
good.
and
I have to
really
get it
applicable
quicker.
stuff. Yeah, and
A
so
point I
really
would something that like helped though, if if listeners are sitting there like, I'm gonna do that. I think that this tweak in how you ask is made a huge difference. It's not, hey, will you teach me? Hey,
right.
can I just sit and listen? You don't even have to
Yes.
look at me. You don't even have to talk to me once. Can I just sit while you make your calls? Can I just
Yes.
It's the difference. It's like, I don't want to teach you, man. Like they're thinking I learned this on my own. It's not my
Right.
responsibility to teach you, but you can sit there. That's fine. Sure. You know?
Yeah, or like if someone's doing an open house, say, "Hey, can I just shadow you at the open house? I'll
Exactly.
I'll go around handing out refreshments or something, but I just want to hear how you talk to people
Exactly.
who you don't." Yeah, you are so right. And what I think you'll most of our listeners would find if they feel self-conscious about asking is, talk to your managing broker and say, "Hey, can you help make an introduction to me? Again, I don't want to be annoying to these agents, but I would love the opportunity just to like be a fly on the wall, listen.
Totally.
Maybe they'd even take you on a listing presentation, right? Like
I did. That's
there's
what I did. They took me.
ama-
It was so cute. I just went with them.
and I mean, I can't imagine what you would have learned on a listing present. It must have been just like, well, this is pretty awesome. Like you must have just learned. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was super helpful. Love them to this day. All of them are out there still slinging. So, but yeah, I would say that was really helpful in the beginning.
Let, let's talk about systems because you scaled. You didn't just stop at 48 transactions. You scaled to, hundreds of transactions per year. So how do you think you made that? Because there's only so much time you have and there's
Yes,
only, so much of anything. So you have, like you were saying, you have to leverage resources, time. What are some of the systems that really made a huge shift for you to allow you that to get to that next massive level?
for sure. Um, yes, the fact that I immediately had systems from these top performing agents that I was able to tweak and make my own and implement, that was me still as a solo agent. I was still doing every piece of the puzzle by myself. The one of the big pieces that was my first like real step up was hiring the transaction coordinator. And not just, I actually hired and fired two before I got to the one that it was actual true leverage. You don't have that fear in the back of your mind. What's falling through? Are they telling people the wrong thing? Like when you finally find the true piece of leverage that lifts it all off your shoulders. And then that piece was huge. And at the time, that transaction coordinator owned her own business and she was managing several agents' files, but she and I hit it off. And I think there's a lot that goes with that too. It's like, respecting communication, being the agent that she wants to work with too, not just you work for me, you're working together. And because of this, by the end of that first year, it's when I was starting the team. And I asked her, I was like, hey, you are amazing. I love working with you. What would it take for you to be mine forever? Leave the business behind, come with me, let's paint the whole vision. And she did. And so that having, and she was an agent for years longer than I was before she even started a transaction coordinator business. She was super detail oriented, where I'm more of like sales and vision and all of that stuff. So our powers combined had a really good foundation for being able to take on more and more volume and also have a lot of value to provide agents as they joined our organization moving forward.
It's amazing. Yeah, you just said so much there.
Great.
I no, no, no,
Word vomiting.
no, no. I'm just processing it. It's so impactful. This idea of we should also just mention what a transaction coordinator is, just for anyone who
Sure.
isn't familiar, which is basically you're hiring somebody. They could be a virtual transaction coordinator. They could be somebody local, like Shelby, was an agent that wasn't practicing but knew everything. Some of the challenges with virtual transaction coordinators is that a lot of times they're from other countries and they represent, realtors in many different states or many different markets in the United States, which means they have to know a lot of different markets, and it's just harder for those agents, or sorry, those transaction coordinators to really fully know exactly what you would need as the realtor, to help their clients. So not all transaction coordinators and not all transaction coordinator companies are created equal.
Oh my gosh.
You as you said, you've hired and fired a few of them, because I've seen some agents who just have the amazing transaction coordinators, and others are like, it's not that helpful. So, but every successful, really truly successful agent I know pretty much has one, has a transaction coordinator. So, I mean, if you think about it, they really do more than just doing the paperwork. They can create timelines for
Oh my
you.
gosh.
They can remind you, hey, it's 10 days before closing. Here are the things we need to do. They remind the client. It's a lot of just process.
It was everything. And especially since, exactly like you said, so the transaction coordinator, she was an agent in North Carolina, which was my state, and she knew the contract inside and out
Yeah.
and was like over communicating with the clients. And the thing that I think is really cool is that I was so proud that she was an extension of my business. I was able to manage the expectations with the client and truly mean it when I say, hey, look, after we go under contract, you get to work with, her name is Megan. You get to work with Megan, and she is amazing. She is going to handle, work with you from contract. I'm going to be there every step of the way, but I promise you want her on the timelines. You want her on the paperwork because she gets it. And by able to manage the expectations, and then she grabs it and she outperforms even my raving expectation. And like that extension of your business. And now Shelby and Megan are phenomenal together. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Absolutely. And transaction coordinators can be as inexpensive as I've seen, TCs charge like $300 on the low end, probably up to like $1,000. I'm not even sure what the most expensive ones pay, but even if you were paying $1,000 per deal, if you could save 20 hours of work, that might be worth it. It's certainly worth it for $300. I think it's
Oh my
probably still
gosh.
worth it if it's $1,000, whatever it is. I mean, it allows you to not get bogged down, unless you like being bogged down in those steps. If you're an agent and that's what you do best, great. But then you'll probably need to have somebody help you with the prospecting and all the other things. So you can't
Totally.
do everything, right? Or you can try to do everything, but you're not going to do everything well.
Right.
And figuring out what you don't enjoy or what you're not good at, is where you can offload it. And transaction coordinators are the easiest, most obvious way to just
Totally.
free up some of your time. And you know what? It's worth the money. It just is. In my opinion. So we tell all of our agents, not all of them do, but we tell them, please get a transaction
Just do
coordinator. Like,
it.
we'll help you the best we can. And we do help a lot, but you really want somebody who this is all they do.
A
So
tip for new age. I totally agree. And for new agents, if you're out there thinking and you're like, man, I can't, I don't want to pay for a transaction coordinator or whatever. This has worked really well for some of our agents where they'll actually hire a transaction coordinator on their very first transaction and then offer to pay them a little extra and be like, hey, this is my first one. I know you know exactly what you're doing. Like, if I give you a little bit of extra, money, is there any way that you could like handhold me and teach me throughout the process?
ooh,
And the right transaction coordinator will teach them way better than, the rock star agent who already uses a transaction coordinator. So has probably
yes.
forgotten how to go to contract to close anyway. So that's been working really well.
God, I love that. That is so smart. Another thing too is ask the top agents in your office who their transaction coordinators
Yeah.
are, and that way you don't have to spend as much time going through ones that maybe haven't been a referral. Or so I love that. So transaction coordinator. I mean, guys, I know it sounds so silly, it's so simple, but it really is. You just got to think about, where am I spending a bunch of time on my business? That's not really what I like doing. That's not really what I'm best at. And if
Totally.
those two things can be offloaded, oh, you're gonna be really, really going to have a lot more freedom and fun, because you just can't wear every single hat effectively. Like, you can wear some hats, but don't try to wear all the hats, because
Totally.
none of us are good at everything. Despite what my mother told me growing up, that I was be good at anything I do. Turns out was wrong,
Oh,
but
good
her
intentions
intention was
though.
good.
Right.
But turns out her boy can't do everything, despite me wanting to be good at everything. What other systems are you utilizing? Well, here, I'll ask you a better question. What systems are you using to stay in touch with your clients after a sale? Because this is a huge opportunity that my parents, you work in North Carolina, but in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have to forget, because I used to go to South Carolina so often. I only think South Carolina, because my parents had a place in North Myrtle Beach, and when they sold that place, reason I'm bringing this up is, it took them years, because it was kind of just bad time in the market, and they went through a bunch of realtors, and finally somebody got it sold. And like a year or two later, not even 2 years, 1 year later, I asked my dad, I was like, oh, hey, by the way, who is that agent? Because I think I had a referral maybe for the agent out there. And my dad was like, I don't remember. He's like, I could figure it out. I can go back and I go, you're kidding. You don't
Yeah.
remember? And my dad's a really smart guy. And he's not like somebody that just wouldn't think about it. He was like, I don't really remember. And I thought, boy, what a terrible thing for that other agent to, like, did a great job. My parents were like so happy that they got the place sold, and now they
Yeah.
don't even remember that person's name. Um,
Crushing.
and that's a missed opportunity for that agent. Now, my
Yeah.
parents don't live there, so okay, maybe there's a little bit of like, well, they live in Illinois, so maybe they're
Sure.
never going to buy another property, but they might know people that are buying in that area or selling. So, what do you do to sort of make sure your clients don't forget about you?
Yeah. So back in the day, I don't do this anymore. I'm actually not closing transactions at the moment. But one of the other main pieces of leverage that I immediately implemented was an operations manager, our ops. And so she took all of the systems that I was doing internally and made them a team wide system to execute for all of the other agents, which was really helpful because my first year, I was an Excel girl from the
Sure.
army. I had all my people on Excel. I knew my little, and even that's like where I thrived. And I knew, I need to do a CRM. I need to do our CRM. I wasn't doing the CRM. So our ops, thank goodness, we had it set up so that way when the contract would close, the transaction coordinator would have a whole handover process with our ops, and they would, take the client, and if they weren't already in the CRM, put them in the CRM and put on the, 1 week check-in, 1 month check-in, 6 month check-in, happy home anniversary in a year, and then also add them to our local events. So one of the things that we've done, we had the CRM, but really baseline. But we invite people to our local events. We did the Pints and Properties once a month, and I love events as a way to constantly invite people to come hang out with you. It's an in-person drip campaign. They're reminded in a non-salesy way that you exist and you are the real estate person. So we did that. And then we also did socials. So I really love social media as a way to nurture. I have this whole thing about like lots of agents will use it as a way to like generate new leads. But to me, it's really like social media for most agents is a cultivation. It's a nurture. It's a reminder as opposed to like fresh leads. That's a whole nother conversation. But those were kind of the three main things. We had the CRM, in-person events, and then social media.
That's awesome. And we should also talk about, I want to talk about Five Pillars coaching, because this is, you are basically taking the systems that you've put together and really helping other agents kind of learn from your, all of your knowledge. And so tell us about what Five Pillars is, and how you help agents.
Yeah. So Five Pillars is founded on all of the systems that we used in our traditional team. So all of the systems that, I built year one, and they evolved over the years with our amazing transaction coordinator, operations manager, and all of these agents who were constantly providing feedback to adjust and evolve with the times. And it worked well for our traditional millionaire real estate agent, Gary Keller model team. And then when I didn't want to do that team model anymore, for it's a whole nother conversation. I was like, we have all these tools and systems. What if we were able to, instead of charge 50% for doing all of the overhead, what if we were able to provide all of these systems to the agents, not take any splits, and allow them to build their own businesses in the way that made sense for them. The other thing that we did when we changed the model is we had transaction coordinators, listing coordinators, we had a whole staff, and I helped them start their own businesses so that way the agents in turn could have the systems to build their empires and the same leverage that the team was paying for before, now they could hire out directly. And I cut out the team as the middleman. So everyone got more money, but everyone got to keep the same systems and run their own play. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. And if anyone is interested in getting some coaching, you have a community that they can join. You have coaching that you offer. Can you just tell us a little bit about sort of how that works?
Yeah. So the community is where agents go to stop being agents and start being business owners. So we're all about building an actual business where, the gold at the end of the rainbow is it's sellable if they do want to sell. Whereas most agents, we just live in this constant state of like chaos and whack-a-mole. And so the whole intent is it's a community of entrepreneurs who are building their own empires alongside peers. And the way it's set up is we have classes throughout the month on the different pieces of building our real businesses. And we also have what we call pods, which within our community, there's small groups of peers, 4 to 5 people. And there's like a schedule they go through with goals and accountabilities. So it's kind of like a self-sustaining incubator for entrepreneurs. Does that make sense?
It does, because I think, even more so than not learning how to be a great agent by going through the licensing classes, which I think all of us know is not the purpose of the licensing class. But then, you're thrust into becoming an agent. You join a firm. Hopefully there's some good training, but the training is mostly going to be around how to find business, close deals. It's going to be about how to do production, but it's not necessarily about how to actually run a business. And that's a totally different skill set. And quite honestly, I find that those skills, unless you come from a family of all entrepreneurs and you just sort of know that world, it's a totally different world and totally
Totally.
different skill set. And it's not always intuitive. In fact, it's
At all.
oftentimes counterintuitive.
Right.
Right. So this is where I think, we think about, oh, I need training for like being a great realtor, but you also need training about how to actually treat it like a business. So
Exactly.
I think it's probably the biggest missed opportunity for agents out there. Like, agents know how to get realtor training because there's so many great sources and places, and not and Shelby's got great training as well. But that's actually not that uncommon. There's lots of training facilities, but to actually learn how to be an entrepreneur in real estate. And more importantly, she said something that I should have highlighted. I'm going to highlight it now. Shelby said something about creating a sellable business. 99% of realtors do not have a sellable business, maybe 99.9%. So Shelby actually wants to teach you how to create something that will continue to add value and continue to be something that you can get paid on either indefinitely, or you can sell it at some point to somebody. This is not what most agents know how to do. And it's not the kind of business that they set up, and they can go their entire career, 30 plus years, and still be successful, but not have a sellable business. So this is an incredible thing to actually give you almost sort of something to consider as like almost a retirement kind of thing, where you can actually take all this great work that you've done over your career and actually then make it, you can assign a value to it and sell it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that it took me a long time to realize, because my first couple of years of going through agent life, it was exactly what you said. It's like, I'm doing the things, I'm doing all of the agent things, but what I didn't realize is that there's like, you have to have a strategy within your business and like an development for your company. And you have to have like a marketing is an actual whole piece of the business that you need to develop into a systematic machine that can repeatedly bring in business into your business. Like, and most agents, when it's like, hey, I'm going to go lead gen, and they pick up their phone and they call 5 people, or they post once on social media and they're like, I did it. And it's like, if you're building an actual business, if you go out and you talk to any real business, they have like a marketing budget and they have a whole team dedicated to strategy. And it's just thinking about it from the lens of an actual business will totally twist in a good way the way that you think about your agent life and the potential in what it holds for you in the future.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And so this is it's a good, thinking like an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs typically start businesses and then they also have an exit strategy. That was the thing that I didn't know when I started studying entrepreneurship was, oh yeah, there's this whole thing called an exit strategy where you actually, maybe you want to do this forever and you just want to do it until you fall over and they put you in the ground, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
for those of us that have like this idea of we want to retire or we want to pass on and maybe do this for a certain amount of time and then move on, you really have to have some pretty serious processes in place to be able to market the business, to make it sellable, and then also to create so much value that people will come to you and say, I want to buy this business. And that's, again, a whole different level of skill that people like Shelby can teach you. Shelby, right now, it's tricky time in the market. Rates are still higher than anyone would like, even though historically it's not so bad. But in the short term, it feels like they're really high. Lending rates, of course, inventory tends to be down in most markets. So it's an easy time to get discouraged, maybe even a little depressed. What are you telling your agents, or what are you encouraging them to do while the market's a little tricky right now, and just keeping everybody motivated and working?
I think that this is the best time for them to double down because of exactly what you said. It's a lot of agents, the ones who are not so sure, one foot in, one foot out, are going to get out, which
Right.
is fantastic
It's
news.
actually a great thing for everyone else. Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's so great because now those sales that they would have gotten, from the few sales, that's out for grabs. And if you're able in your market to be able to double down on building out your business, and especially marketing in general, just eat away at the market share, get as much as possible, because when the market does turn, you will absolutely explode. So I think that now is the time. If you're in it, you freaking go hard. And if you're not in it, please just goodbye. That sounds so bad, but like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think that's exactly we're seeing it now. We have a holding company, which is for agents that aren't actively practicing. And I think 2 years ago, we're the largest holding company in Illinois. I think we had maybe 600 agents. And then in the last 2 years, no, in the last year, we've added 150 agents. These are people who find us. They're like, I'm getting out. We've never had that many people join our holding company in a given year. So lots of people are getting out, and that is a great thing for everyone else. They can gobble up market share. So what are you telling your agents to double down on? Like, what are they actually doing to help take advantage of the fact that some agents are stepping off the gas?
Right. So a lot of them are just locking in their specific marketing strategy and going hard at whatever that strategy may be. And that's a part of, like, within Five Pillars Nation, we're not teaching you one specific way. It's like, hey, there's many different lead generations and marketing strategies, and depending on your own personality type, what's an authentic fit for you, what you actually will put the time and effort into. And sometimes you don't know starting out, so it's really good to like test in the beginning. But as soon as you find that thing, whether it is door knocking or cold calling or content creation, or maybe it's, YouTube ads or direct mail, it does not matter. Everything works. But when you find that authentic fit and you put the blinders on and go all in on whatever that marketing strategy is.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. There are a lot of different ways that you can do it. And I think you're so right about find something that you enjoy doing that you can step on the gas, whether it's, I talked to a Compass agent the other day who said, he goes, every day I make 30 comments on people's posts on Facebook, and they're authentic comments. He goes, I spend about half an hour. I see when someone goes on vacation or whatever, and I write them, say, hey, that looks really fun, or a great dinner, or whatever. And he goes, I cannot tell you just doing that alone, it really, really works,
Yeah.
because people feel appreciated. They feel seen and heard. You're not just somebody asking for business. You're actually commenting on their lives. And it's like, oh yeah, of course that makes sense. But he's like, he gets really into that. And so for
Yeah.
people that really enjoy celebrating other people's successes, social media is the place to do it, right? Because it's everything's a win on social media with what people post. It's, it's not usually like, well, I got into a fight with my husband this morning. And, it's like my husband and I just went on this great vacation or whatever. So these, I think, are huge opportunities to demonstrate care, that you actually care about the people in your life. So that's just one way to do it. There's a million different ways as well. But whatever you're doing, yeah, double down on it right now, because most agents are not.
Backing up.
So if somebody wants to really learn about Five Pillars Nation, join the community, maybe get some coaching, possibly even join your team, because you have agents in every single state. What are or you can take on agents from every state, I should say. What are what's the best way they can learn about Five Pillars and get involved with you?
Yeah, fivepillarsnation.com is the website, and on Instagram is where I would love to, you know, shoot me a DM or reach out, because I would love to talk to you about whatever you have going on in your business and see if there's something. That's something too. It's like everything that we have is documented. So if there's a piece of the puzzle that you're missing, it's just as easy as sharing, a link. So I'm more than happy to share any of our tools and systems. And it's at the Shelby Show with 2 underscores on Instagram. And then also, if you are out there and you're thinking about starting a meetups have been wildly successful for my business in branding and lead generation and all of these other things we didn't talk about today. But pintsandproperties.com, you can check that out in any of those. And I would love to talk to you. So hit me up.
Yeah, pintsandproperties.com is a great resource, fivepillarsnation.com, and the Shelby Show with 2 underscores. We will put links to all of that. That's Instagram, by the way. We'll put links to all of that in the show notes, so you can, dip your toe in the water, start following what Shelby's doing. But guys, I mean, there's got to be some part of everyone who's listening's business that you're like, I could really use like a different listing presentation, or I don't have a good buyer checklist, or I don't really know the pathway to closing and I could use some tips. Shelby's got all this stuff, and she's just nice enough to just say, here, let's teach you how to do it. And she's all about giving, and she served our country, so let's help serve her and help her business as well. And she's just a heck of a nice person. So I always love when our guests are so generous, and they all are. And so Shelby is no exception. So I want to support Shelby. I want you guys to support her. So definitely check out fivepillarsnation.com, pintsandproperties.com, and also the Shelby Show on Instagram. And you will learn all things Shelby. And gosh, her and her team are just skyrocketing their success, and she is a lot of fun and very, very sweet. So please reach out to her. She loves to help, and she's helping you right now by being on our show. So let's help her. So Shelby, thank you so much for being on our show. I can't wait to have you back in the future. We can get a deeper dive into some of these amazing systems that you've put together. But guys, reach out to her, ask her for help. She and her team will definitely be in touch with you. Shelby, on behalf of our audience, thank you. Thank you again for your service to the country and for your service to this industry and helping our listeners too. That's really super appreciative. I don't have all those resources to give our listeners, so thankfully you do. So don't ask me, guys, because I'll just go, I don't know. But Shelby has everything that you need. So reach out to her. She's super great. So on behalf of the audience, thank you, Shelby. And on behalf of Shelby and myself, thank you to the audience for sticking around to the very end. Visit all the Shelby websites and follow her on Instagram and reach out to her with what you need. And again, thank you for making it to the end. Please tell a friend about this podcast. Guys, this is a tricky year. Let's help all of our fellow realtors. Let's give them, some more resources to help them stay afloat in this tricky time. Send them a link to this episode. You can find us at keepingitrealpod.com. Every episode can be streamed live. Or if they're a podcast person, just pull up a podcast app, search for Keeping It Real, hit that subscribe button. And also, if you can leave us a review, whether you're on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this, YouTube, let us know what you think of the show. We take that feedback very seriously, and we always are here to modify, to get better and better, to make you guys appreciate us even more. So let us know what we can do to help make the show better. And let's also reach out to Shelby. Shelby, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So fun being here. Thanks for having me.